All right, good evening, everybody. Happy holidays. Welcome to the December 2022 edition of the Brooklyn Community Board 2 Health, Environment, Social Services Committee. My name is Brandon Smith. I'm the chair of the committee. For those of you who are aware and those who are not, I have some remote committee announcements to make at the beginning of the meeting. First of all, please note that the meeting is being recorded for public access and archiving in accordance with the New York State Open Meetings Law. It is the practice of Community Board 2 to conduct remote meetings with all committee member cameras on. Public attendees are also encouraged to leave their cameras on, particularly if you're given the floor to speak. All attendees, please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. To maintain an appropriate discussion and voting process, I will make it known when and which topics are open for comment by committee members, board members at large, and the general public. If you have questions that fall outside of public comment time, please type your questions in the chat panel and we will address them as time permits. You may also email the district office at any time outside of the meetings. We are committed to providing access for all of our neighbors, regardless of physical ability or limitation. If you require accommodation or assistance for full participation, please contact the district office 72 hours before any public meeting. We also ask that people speaking or presenting use plain language, speak at a moderate tone, and frequently ask if you're speaking loud enough. If presenting, read the title of every slide and describe any images on the slide, such as photos, graphs, and charts. And as a general reminder, we do expect everybody attending our meetings to conduct themselves with respect for everybody else. That goes if you're a committee member, board member, staff member, member of the public, or somebody presenting to us. We will not tolerate any signs of disrespect, and if anybody is repeatedly not engaging in respectful conduct, we have the right to remove you from the meeting. I'll now introduce each of the other committee members. We'll start with my co-chair, Ms. Nicole McKnight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole McKnight, and as Brandon stated, I am the co-chair of the committee and a community board member.
Thank you. Nice to see you again, Nicole.
Thank you.
Ms. Thurston, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jessica Thurston. I'm the secretary of this committee and of the full board.
Awesome. And in the order of the windows as I see them, Mr. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. My name is Jeffrey Ryan, and I'm a committee member.
Oh, thank you. Nice to see you again, Mr. Ryan. We also have Ms. Anadu.
Hello, I'm Emily Anadu, member of the HESS committee and a member of the general board.
Thank you. Oh, hi. Mr. Andrews, do you want to introduce yourself?
Victor, member of the committee and full board.
Oh, good to have you here, Victor. Thanks for joining. And Ms. Muller, do you want to introduce yourself as well, too?
Hello, Taya Miller, proud district resident and district office representative.
and presumed district manager. We are excited for you and really, or elect district manager. Thank you. More than excited for you and really appreciate all the efforts you've been giving us. And so I think everybody's universally happy about this. Awesome. We are so delighted to report that we have quorum at the beginning of the meeting. Hallelujah. I'm going to proceed with going through the agenda, and the first step in that regard is the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone want to make such a motion?
Second.
All right, Victor is seconded. I saw Mr. Ryan's hand. So I'm taking the motion from Mr. Ryan, a second from Mr. Andrews. Does anybody oppose or abstain from approving the agenda?
No.
Let the record reflect there is unanimous approval for the agenda of tonight's meeting. We're going to move forward to the adoption of the minutes from November 2022 You all should have a copy of them that has been circulated. Any corrections or adjustments should be sent to the secretary. Could I ask for a motion in regards to the minutes of November 2022? I make a motion, we approve the minutes of November 2022. And I see,
Second,
well, Mr. Andrews, I saw Miss Anadu's hand first. She gets the second, but we'll think of you next time. Anybody oppose or abstain from approving the minutes of November 2022? Any concerns about the minutes? Of course, address them with the secretary. It looks like we've got a unanimous approval of the minutes from November of 2022. We can proceed to our next item on the agenda. Very excited to provide opportunity for Ms. Anadu to deliver yet another exciting district level community health update. We've been looking forward to this. I know I have for much of the day today. So take it away, Ms. Anadu, and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I was hoping to be able to do more of like a complete year in review, but the updated COVID boosters, the data is a little fuzzy. So we might in January look at that, but we'll just do the typical COVID update. So without further ado, okay. Oh. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great.
I can, yeah.
Okay. So I know that there is a lot of COVID fatigue, but things are not good, people. And so looking at this basically looks at the last 7 days. And to give perspective, the percent positive of 13.2. In March, that number was 3.5. In June, it was 8.5. And so while I think, again, that there's quite a bit of fatigue, people are still getting COVID. The good thing is, well, actually not a lot of good. The case rate also about double what we saw in September. So the good news from this is that at least the hospitalizations and death rates are decreasing. Again, any hospitalization and death is bad, but at least those numbers are on the decline despite the high positivity rate. One thing as we think about this time of year, and so this chart basically shows COVID rates in the city, starting from basically the beginning of the chart is March all the way through, you see these peaks that we typically see at this time of year. And so in particular, this is not the time to relax. And so I think even if we look at last year, what we saw is that this period in here represents where we are now. And so again, I think we were in a time where people weren't paying attention, weren't being as vigilant, but again, with holiday travel, we should expect, hopefully the spike won't be as high, but we should expect that this number, it's just going to go up. It is not, we are not out of the woods yet. One of the things that I think just from a public knowledge perspective that might be confusing things, particularly as we think about combating COVID with vaccinations, is that there are all these new phrases that have entered our lexicon. And so this slide just really briefly tries to talk about monovalent versus bivalent vaccination. So whenever you hear people talk about updated booster, that really is the bivalent vaccination. And the easy way to think about it is mono being 1, bi being 2. And so the idea of the bivalent vaccination is that it is not only takes care of the original recipe of COVID, but also tries to account for Omicron subvariants. And those are the ones that basically now when people have COVID, they're getting Omicron. So again, these boosters and particularly the updated boosters are very, very important. And so going into who should get these bivalent boosters, basically simple answer, everyone should. So 5 and above, and just so some quick information on what makes you eligible. So basically, if it's been at least 2 months since your most recent COVID-19 vaccine dose, there's a little bit of nuance between like if you're in the 5 and 6 age, but basically if you're over 6, you can get Pfizer or Moderna, but 5, you can only get the Pfizer booster. There's also some information around how long you need to wait, but I think the important thing to remember for all of this, and this document will be available in the public folders and you can link to all the data sources, is that while the first vaccinations gave us over 90% basically coverage, that continues to drop because as there are more unvaccinated people, variants come. So unfortunately, think of COVID like the flu. You will always be getting some sort of vaccination. We've all done it. We can do it. It only hurts a tiny bit. So really stay vigilant. So to that point, and again, I think just with some of the confusion and some of the COVID fatigue, the new or updated bivalent boosters were introduced in September. But since September, while these numbers are high in terms of you're thinking about 783,000 New York City residents have received it, that's only 9% of the population. So it's actually fairly low. We are seeing higher vaccination rates with the updated booster in the population above 65, who are obviously much more susceptible. But for me, when I look at this again just adds up to, if you're thinking about New York City, the holidays, getting together with either your very young people in your family or older people in your family, just again, be careful. It is not just because I know a lot of people now are not heavily symptomatic, but it is still very much a thing. And so it's really about keeping everyone around us safe. Unfortunately, I wish this number changed, but Brooklyn continues to be the most under-vaccinated borough. And so as we see from this, Manhattan's totally kicking Brooklyn's butt if this were a competition, but it's not. And so we see that Brooklyn, just amongst all ages in terms of getting at least 1 dose, we are the lowest. Getting fully vaccinated, we are the lowest. And then in terms of additional boosters, that is where we're not the lowest, but we're definitely not doing great. So again, just in particular in Brooklyn, families, just be safe, try to get vaccinated. Just looking at, as we've thought about what's happening recent, this was data that I could get just going back to the beginning of COVID. And so when we look at COVID going back to March 2020, when we were all going to go inside for 2 weeks and then everything was magically going to be better. That has not been the case. And so in particular, this for me, what stood out is that while in New York State, you see the cases, the deaths. And so overall, New York City represents about 43% of the overall New York State population. And so if we're in line, you want to see our number, our percentage of cases and deaths also being basically at 43% or below. Unfortunately, we are over-indexing, meaning that we are actually seeing relatively more cases and deaths than the overall New York State population. So from a case perspective, we have about 45% of cases compared to, again, comprising 43% of the population. But the really scary figure is that since the beginning of COVID, we have represented 58% of deaths, despite being only 43% of the population. So definitely numbers that we don't want to see. So in closing, I'll just say stay vigilant, get COVID boosters as recommended by your health professionals. I just play a health professional for 2 hours once a month. And then obviously, while we've talked a lot about COVID, please, please, please don't forget to get your flu shots. Most locations, you're able to get both shots at the same time, because the worst thing you want to do is get the flu, but maybe think it's COVID or just have any confusion around that. So encouraging everyone to get your flu shots. Thank you for your time. This presentation will be made available in the public folder following the meeting, and every stat that is in here, you can check the data sources if you have any more questions or are interested in digging in, but mostly spend that time getting a vaccination if you haven't. Okay, that's it, and I will stop now.
Thank you, Ms. Anadu. Really wonderful presentation once again. I had every thought it would be. Excited. I can tell you I got my booster, so I'm excited to report that. And also, this is it. It seems sort of interesting to wonder where the curve is going to go in January of this year. Seeing clear evidence that it spikes in prior years. So I really appreciate you putting that together. I think it'd be great, maybe even to have a more developed meeting on where the health department is at this, maybe sometime later this year. But I will stop with my remarks other than to recognize how great your presentation was and see if anyone on the committee or anyone on in the rest of the Zoom meeting has any questions or comments for Ms. Sanadu. First, anyone from the committee?
No, other than you did a great job with the update. Very informative.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight. And Ms. Cumberbatch is here. Ms. Cumberbatch, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Good evening. My name is Monique Cumberbatch. I am a member of Community Board 2 and a member of the committee.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us. Anyone from the public who has a question for Ms. Sanadu or interested in COVID-19 briefing? Here are none. I will move ahead in the agenda for tonight's meeting. The next item up is the open session for public comment on adopted agenda items. This is an interesting topic, always every month. I like to preface it by saying we have a set number of agenda items here, and after each agenda item, there'll be another opportunity for anyone who wants to comment on those agenda items, and it might even be better after you've heard the presentation from the person who's giving it. But this area of the agenda is reserved for the specific items we have on the agenda. We have one new liquor license application and a number of different renewal applications. If you have a comment about one of those applications or agenda items, now's the time to raise it, but only members of the public. So, anyone want to raise an item? Here are none. I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda. That is the liquor license review at tonight's meeting. We have one new application at tonight's meeting. It is 159 Bridge Park Drive, New York City by boat. Do we have somebody here from that location?
That's me.
Oh, wonderful. If you give it just 1 second, we should have your license up on the screen, or your application information up on the screen. Take it away. What have we got here?
Well, I'm the application. I'm the owner of the company. I run a small passenger boat, tour boat out of Brooklyn Bridge Park, 115 Marina. I'm seeking to get my permit, and I was told to drop in on this meeting. This is my first time. This is all new to me.
No worries. Well, looking through your packet, it looks like you did some things right. You definitely posted that notice in a number of different locations, including on the boat itself, it seems. And it looks like you had a number of letters of support that were provided from different folks, including people in the immediate area. The location is the same as an application we had in February 21 for Brooklyn Sail. Does this have anything to do with Brooklyn Sail?
No, that's my friend. We operate out of the same marina, and that's the address of the marina. He does the same thing I do, except he offers a sailboat. Mine's just a power boat, and we do tours around East River, up the Hudson, Jersey City, Statue of Liberty, around Governor's Island, up Brooklyn, Manhattan, Williamsburg Bridge, and then back to the marina.
Okay. How many people would be on the boat at the same time generally?
Generally 6 people. It's a 6-pack charter boat. We're going to be doing 8 people next year, maybe 10. It all depends on if the Coast Guard approves our package. If not, it's just a 6-pack, which means 6-person charters. Okay.
Do you feel like you've had experience and are able to take care of people if they get too intoxicated when they're out in the boat?
Yes, sir. I've been doing this for 15 years. I was the port captain over at East 23rd Street Marina in Manhattan. I ran 7 different booze crews and dinner boats. My job was to hire captains, train them, managers, train them. And this is not a booze cruise. This is a quick 2-hour tour. So it's kind of hard for the people to get so intoxicated within 2 hours. We purposely make it 2-hour trips just for that reason. When you get into 3-hour charters, that's when people start going the other way. But yeah, we limit it to 2, and we're really just trying to provide something for these people that come in from out of state or people from other countries. They're racing. They don't account for New York City traffic. It's very hard to get to the marina if you're not from around there. As you guys know, the BQE and whatnot. So by the time they get there, they're huffing and puffing, and they weren't able to go to the marketplace or the liquor store to get what they have. So we just wanted to provide them with that option, that way they could enjoy because it really is a good cruise. It's BYOB right now, but we'd like to provide something for those people who can't, who aren't able to bring everything and they're not fully prepared.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Any questions for the applicant?
I have a quick question, Brandon.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Thurston.
Thanks. Thank you for explaining all this. My question is, it looks here like you have 1 employee employed. Does that mean it's just you? Are there multiple folks that rotate? And my secondary question to that is, does that mean that the person driving the boat is then also responsible for managing the safety of the folks on board, and including their, moderating their alcohol consumption?
Yes, ma'am. So basically anything more than 6 passengers, the Coast Guard's required us to have a deckhand on board as well as the captain. So anything 6 or less is just the captain. Next year we will have a deckhand for this reason. So we'll have somewhat of a host who will be dealing with the people, talking to them, explaining, oh, this is the statue, it was erected in 1886, talking and just being a host for the people, walking them down to the boat and walking them back out to the gate. The captain's more responsible for steering the boat and just, doing captain things, making sure that the passengers get on and off the boat safely, and then just steering the boat throughout the course of the day. And that's our goal, is to have a host, which will be a dual job. So you be hosting, and then when we get back to the dock, you turn back into a deckhand. You help with the lines, help with the passengers, and then walk the passengers up to the street out of the marina. But anything more than 6, you're required to have a host. We just want to have a host just for a better all around. It is a lot of work for just one captain to do everything. I mean, that's what we've been doing the past 3 years, but business has been good for us, and we hope that we'll get more international visitors back in and travelers. But we're definitely going to go with a deckhand this upcoming year.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, just to clarify, that is not reflected in your application, because it just says 1 employee.
Okay. So are you saying I should add that?
I think I'm asking for clarity. It sounds like you're saying 2 different things. For the application you're seeking right now, will there just be 1 employee on the boat at any given time?
If it's less than 6 passengers, then yes, we'll have just 1 employee, but we're shooting to go to 8 to 10 passengers this year.
But you're not approved for that yet, right?
Well, we're required. So if I were to take 7 passengers, for example, I'm required by the Coast Guard to have a licensed captain and a deckhand on board. So if we go over 6, then yes, we'll be required to have that. We can't leave the dock without it.
But are you allowed to go over 6? I'm not understanding that. part.
I'm allowed to, yes, you're allowed to go over 6, but you have to have a deckhand. Anything under
understand
6, you could, you know, if you had 6 people in your party and it was just me, legally, I can leave the dock with you guys, and that's what we've been doing.
So it sounds like you need to update your application, maybe to just say to when their cases, if it's over 6 people, because yeah, Jessica, I was
Okay, gotcha. I'll do that right now. Thank you.
I can assist
Yeah.
with this. Actually, that's not required. The application only needs to be updated if the Coast Guard, it's secondary. So Edward, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from members of the committee?
Yeah. I'm
Mr.
curious,
Ryan?
before you leave the dock, do you do a safety briefing?
Yes. Yeah, we do that. I don't do it on the dock. I do it on land, like just outside the marina gate, just making sure everyone's aware of what we're about to get into. And basically I tell them, you know, I introduce myself. I let them know what we'll be doing, where the life jackets are in case of emergency, what to do. And basically I'll say, you know, welcome. I'll be your captain today. We'll be going around the tip of Manhattan, up the west side a little bit. We'll shoot across to Jersey City, Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty. We'll stop there for photos, come back around Governor's Island. We'll go up the East River, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Williamsburg Bridge, and we'll stop there for photos. And then I explain that in case of emergency, here are the life jackets. And basically, that's it. You know, I was 15 years active duty in the Coast Guard, so I know what to do in case of emergency, and so do my captains as well. So that's basically it. If they have any questions, they let me know right then and there.
Do you,
Mr. Ryan?
Okay,
Sorry, I'll let you ask a follow-up question, Mr. Ryan. I didn't mean to cut you off.
okay. Are you certain that your passengers will be, even though you may think it's a very simple thing, know how to put on your life vests? We don't want to take that for granted.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Our life vests are very easy. They're Coast Guard approved. Put them over the neck, loop it around, buckle along the chest. Those are all on standby, ready to go. We have flares, life rings, first aid kits. The boat is set up lovely for chartering around Manhattan. It was the boat was built for 6-pack charters with fishing charters out of New Jersey. So what we did is we just converted it for touring purposes.
Okay. Ms. Anadu?
Hi, Edward, thank you so much for your application. I know you believe that people are not able to get super drunk in 2 hours, perhaps. What are there any procedures in place if someone arrives to the boat and seems to already have pre-partied? Or, you know, do you have measures to basically
simply pull, like, it's obvious when they get there, you pull them aside. That's you know, we speak with them for up to 20 minutes before we go down that ramp and start boarding the vessel. So yeah, in the past, when I was over in Manhattan, we would get that all the time, especially young kids coming, they're boarding at 12 o'clock midnight. You know what they've been doing all the way up there. So we'll just pull them aside and we'll say, listen, we'll talk to the host or whoever's in charge. In this case, we'll just pull the people aside. We don't want to embarrass them and just tell them, you know, I don't feel it's safe for you to get on underway, especially on a public cruise, because it throws the whole vibe off. You don't want someone who's intoxicated being on the boat with someone who's not already. So what we'll do is we'll pull them aside and tell them, you know, you could have your money back, and that's basically it. We give them a refund and keep it moving. But if I feel like they've been drinking already, we just won't serve them. That won't be we don't sell tickets like you buy 2 tickets and get 2 drinks free. This would be just for people who are running late. Basically the same thing as Brooklyn Sail. We've talked about this, and He's kind of holding my hand with this whole situation, as in turn I help him with the mechanics of his boat and help him find captains. So he's trying to help me with getting this passed.
Okay, thank you. But it sounds like you've thought about it. So thank you very much and good
Yeah.
luck. Your establishment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Ms. Cumberbatch.
I think you answered my question. I was going to ask if you thought about doing like drink tickets to make sure that people don't imbibe a little bit more, but
No, it's not, we don't want to, I try to keep the tickets as cheap as possible to get the people to the boat. I've tried bumping my prices up and it just doesn't work. So I'm actually the cheapest tour in Manhattan. And because of it, I get quantity, out of a lot of tourists because the prices are so low.
Great. Well, I also want to make sure there's an opportunity for any members of the public to ask questions. Oh, wait, Ms. McKnight, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
It's
Go ahead.
okay, it's okay.
For some reason, you didn't pop up to the front. Go ahead.
Mhm. I noticed that Edward mentioned BYOB, but it's a boat. So I'm just wondering if the rules and Taya kind of mentioned to me that it's a gray area, but I just wanted to bring it up that I was wondering if that is an issue or a concern for us. Because right now that's what he's offering or allowing, but it is a tour boat, it's not a restaurant.
Well, Mr. Edward, what is your intention going forward, and to what extent have you looked into this issue?
As far as people bringing their own,
Yeah, correct.
we wouldn't, if we get approved for this, we'd kind of be shooting ourselves in the foot, by doing that. So it's more for, we would probably do away with that. Yeah. The BYOB, we'd have to. Because we would offer it.
All right.
Does that answer your question?
Well, it answers part of my question in terms of what you've what you plan to do going forward. It sounds like you plan to not do the BYOB going forward. I think perhaps, and maybe we can all consider it this way, that it may be a gray area for many of us what the standards are for BYOB on a vessel as opposed to at a physical establishment where it's clearly not allowed in New York State.
Well, at the other marina with the big boats, we had 200-300 passengers. We would have to search their bags and such, even for bottles of water. It was strictly prohibited. We weren't allowed. And that was per the New York State alcohol licensing. Like, they didn't want that. And plus, we didn't want people bringing on because that would hurt our bar sales. So same thing would happen here.
Okay. Any other questions from either committee members or members of the public or board members? I see we have board member Latrell Masso here, and I acknowledge her joining us. But anyone have a question about 159 Bridge Park Drive, I believe is the address? Yes. Looks like we have no more questions. I'll ask the committee, does anyone want to make a motion?
I will make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Millie.
I motion to approve the application.
Okay. Do we have a second on Ms. Anadu's motion?
I'll second it.
All right. I will give you the second, Ms. McKnight. I saw Mr. Ryan's hand, but I couldn't tell which one was first, but you get the second. Discussion on the motion. Ms. Thurston.
Yeah, I really appreciate this discussion, and thank you, Edward, for sharing all of this. Obviously, it's kind of new to us, so we appreciate it. I'll just share with the committee that I have some concerns about there not being another person that's actually kind of observing people and keeping eyes on the process. And so I don't know how that affects my vote in one way or another, but I kind of just want to communicate that I am uncertain about that to just the committee members.
Okay. Does anyone else have a point they want to make or a question or a comment about the application? Sorry, Mr. Edward, this is committee time for discussion, so it's only for members of the committee. I'll check the boxes, see if anyone wants to add anything. It looks like there's no more committee discussion. I will ask Mr. Edward a follow-up question just to confirm. Going forward into, I guess, next year, which would be 2023, the year beginning January 1st. Is it your intention that next year you will have a person in aside from the captain on the boat at all times?
Yes, sir. So basically, if this gets approved, we will have a host / deckhand. And the reason being is if we do 3 trips a day, it wouldn't make sense to have the host come in for 1 trip, then have a 5-passenger private charter in the middle, and then send her home or he home, and then do so it would be for every trip, regardless of how many people are coming on the boat. It'll help the captains out. Just all around, it just makes for an easier go around. The people love it. When basically what I did all last year was by myself, and it's hard on me. You know, I'm a one-man team. I gotta dock the boat, tie the boat up, talk to the people. You know, it's rough.
I've got you. So basically, whether there's 2 people on the boat or
correct,
the maximum number of people on the boat, there's going to be somebody else there besides the captain.
yes, sir. It provides for a better product at the end. I have had my cousin and my sister come on board. It works great that way.
That it's good to know. So we have that understanding. For the committee, is there any other discussion that folks want to have before we vote? I don't want to push everybody.
Can I say one thing?
Mr. Edward, I'd like to proceed into voting now,
Oh.
so perhaps we can just move forward. All right. So, having heard everything, I vote in favor of the motion. Next square up, Ms. Thurston, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Cumberbatch, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. McKnight,
In favor.
Ms. Anadu,
In favor.
Mr. Ryan,
In favor?
Mr. Andrews, oh, we're waiting for Mr. Andrews. Ms. Cumberbatch, did I get you? I think I did. Okay, boy, everybody went by pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Did I miss anyone? Okay, motion passed. We will put Mr. Andrews down as a abstain for now. And we will move on to the next item. Congratulations. Good luck, Mr. Edward, with your boat rides. Have a nice evening. Next up, we have renewals. At this month's meeting, we have several renewals located at 63 Flushing. They're all entitled HNY Ferry, and they have different names: Traverse City, Koala Field, Rainbow, Jewel, Dream, Unity, and Forget Me Not, with not spelled KNOT. In addition to the 63 Flushing items, we've also got 662 Fulton Denise, 647 Fulton Brick, 72 Hudson Vinegar Hill House, 63 Flushing Building 92, BNYDC, 445 Gold C104 DeKalb Stage LLC, 229 231 Duffield Hotel Indigo and Brew House, 485 Myrtle Waza, 454 Myrtle El Kafri, and 4 Water Ignacio's. Ms. Mueller, have there been any complaints or concerns brought to the board office's attention from anyone about these establishments?
There have been no complaints about any of these establishments.
Okay. Can I ask if anyone from the committee or any members of the public in attendance at tonight's meeting has a concern or a statement they want to make about one of the renewal applications that I just read off? Hearing none, does anyone wish to make a vote, a motion with respect to the renewals that are on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I move that we approve them. Is there a second? Second from Ms. McKnight. Any discussion? All right. I vote in favor. Mr. Ryan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Favor. Ms. Cumberbatch,
In favor?
Ms. Nadu,
Favor.
Ms. McKnight,
Yes.
Ms. Thurston.
Yes.
Once again, Mr. Andrews. Mr. Andrews abstains. All right. So we moved on from the renewals. We've got the chairperson's report. Not a ton to report at tonight's meeting. I will report that we'll talk about briefly at the other business section about the potential for the health fair. But in the time between last month's meeting and this month's meeting, we had a meeting on Monday of this week with the Friends of Commodore Berry Park with Latrell Masso and myself, Mr. Singletary, and the folks from the Friends all in attendance. The Friends basically expressed to us that they would be open and happy to work with us again if we wanted to do the fair again at Commodore Berry Park this year. It was a really pleasant discussion and it made us feel, at least those of us who were there, that if we went that route, it would be it would probably work out working with them again. They also indicated some flexibility about the dates, because I'm sure those of you who were here at the last meeting remember that we were going to consider dates potentially earlier in the month of June than what we did this past year. So hopefully in the other business section, we can have a further discussion about this point. And I will also point out that I had a conversation with the folks from the Parks Department today about the status of Commodore Berry Park in June of 2023. While nothing can be known for certain, folks should expect generally the park to be in the same condition it was in June 2022. But as close observers will remember, the comfort station / restrooms were closed, and the expectation is that they will probably still be closed as of June 2023. However, the spaces that we used for our event are all still available. And the only thing that will be closed in the park in June of 2023 is the ball fields. At least that's the plan. I will also mention that Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso has been doing some work regarding developing a comprehensive plan for Brooklyn, and there's an opportunity for the public to attend a meeting on Monday, December 7th or December 12th about this. And there's also an ability for the public to comment on apparently some health related items that are going to be considered as part of this comprehensive plan. Put a link to it in the chat. And note there, it might be helpful, particularly for those of you who are interested in data and health disparities in data, to point out issues in the survey or at the meeting about potential things that we've seen or inconsistencies in city reports that have come across our attention. That's all I got to report for chairperson's report tonight. Other than I wish everybody a happy holiday season. Other committee business. I know I want to talk briefly about the health fair tonight, but aside from the health fair, does anyone have any other committee business that they'd like to discuss? All right, hearing none. I want to have a brief discussion about the health fair here at this meeting, because here in December, it's important for us to make certain decisions that are important for having a potential health fair next year. We don't need to figure everything out at this meeting, but effectively, it would be helpful if we could figure out, one, do we want to do another health fair? Two, where do we want to do it? And three, what day? Because this is a good time. And indeed, when I spoke to the Parks Department person today, she was excited to hear that we were thinking about doing it at this point in the year, because it makes everything a whole lot simpler if we firm up the permit way ahead of time, like we might do. I will also mention that I am excited to announce that the Parks Committee and Barbara are planning to co-sponsor and work with us on the health fair this year. And Barbara indicates she has recruited 3 of her members who are particularly interested in supporting this. So I think from here, I would just like to, I guess, get folks' feedback now that you've had time to think about it. At the last meeting, we had discussed the potential of doing the health fair either on the first or the second weekend of June at either Commodore Barry Park, Fort Greene Park, or Borough Hall. And in the time in between this meeting and the last meeting, folks were going to think about this some more, and we had that follow-up discussion with the friends, and Luttrell has done some work to reach out to our different providers who have indicated, as much as anyone really can at this point, that they will generally be available the first couple of weeks of June. But it's good for us, and the message that some of them came back with, it's good for us to tell them what date we want, because then they can book it in their calendar 6 months in advance and make sure that they are ready to come out and give as much as they can. So from here, perhaps we can just have folks indicate whether or not you think, A, we should have a health fair, 2, when do you think we should have it, and 3, where do you think we should have it? So I'll open the floor and see if anybody wants to raise their hand and discuss this point. And I'll also open the floor to Ms. Masso to contribute if she wants as well. She doesn't have to, but I know she's not technically a member of the committee on the roster, but as a member of the board, I welcome her input as much as she'd like to make it.
I can start.
Go ahead, Ms.
Brandon,
McKnight.
for feedback. I would say, yes, let's do it again. Second week of June, the second Saturday of June, I think that would be a good compromise with the Friends of Commodore Park, because during Monday's meeting, they seemed like they were open to changing the date as you indicated. And let's do it with them again, because I think it's good to partner with people who are already in the community.
Okay. Jessica has indicated some support to that in the chat. Thank you, Jessica. Anyone else on the committee want to express thoughts or comments about this?
This is Latrell.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Luttrell.
someone else wants to go. I can wait.
No, the floor is yours, Luttrell. So take it away.
Friends in Commodore Barry Park, like Nicole said, they seem like they really wanted to work with us again. We already know like what to expect for them, and I just think Commodore Barry Park will be a good place to have our second annual health fair. Also, like I agree, maybe the second week is better, because the first week is like the first of the month. Is the 3rd, so that's when a lot of people, get their they pay their bills and there's a lot of things going on. So maybe the second Saturday in the month is really would be that's the 10th. Yeah, that's what I'm to say.
Okay, well, thanks for your input, Latrell. Ms. Nadu,
Just supporting. I'm sad I was not in town last time, so I'm excited that I will definitely be in town either the first or second weekend. And I definitely think with the learnings fresh from this past year, it would be a shame to not continue to grow it. So
thanks. Anyone else want to share their thoughts or feelings about this? You don't have to, but I want to get anyone else's thoughts recorded, and then maybe we can take a vote as a committee that we as to what we want to do. It seems like we're trending towards the topic of doing it at Commodore Berry Park on the second Saturday in June, and doing it. Yeah, I think that's all that we're trending towards. So hopefully we can see any other comments from the committee or anyone else. Mr. Ryan.
Again, I'm very supportive of going back to Commodore Perry Park. Looking at the calendar, the second weekend of June, the 10th, I think that looks good too. I definitely think we should do it. And by the way, last summer, I found a bathroom
Oh,
that was open,
wow.
but I did have to walk all the way to the other end of the park. I heard when that was mentioned at the last meeting, but there was one available, but it was all the way at the other end of the park. So that's just a note.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
there may have been, and I will say this for those of you who are hoping to find a more convenient bathroom at this year's health fair, that the Parks Department gave me this advice about the bathroom. I think as sort of kind of CYA, in the context of maybe there is actually a chance that the bathroom will be open for the health fair, but they don't want to commit to it because the construction could potentially take longer. So we'll see. It's kind of a TBD, but at least we know that everything that was open for our health fair last year is going to still be open this year. There could be some other finer discussion points which we can talk about at this meeting or in other subgroups that exist or get created in the coming months. And we'll also look forward to Barbara's feedback. But I'd like to propose now raising a motion as a committee that we move to hold a health fair this next year in June on the second Saturday of the month at Commodore Berry Park. And I want to ask, is there a second for my motion?
I'd like
Second, Ryan.
second motion, like to second it.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I would like to discuss what Taya just put in the chat. Do we have any concerns about the 10th also being Brooklyn Pride Day?
Brooklyn.
I don't know if it would impact our health fair, but
Well, go ahead, Ms. Nadu.
I was going to, without having thought about it deeply for a long time, I would say that even though I think that it wouldn't actually impact it, I think that the message it sends of planning over it is not necessarily great. Or just we should consider what message that sends by scheduling over.
Okay. I'm open to hearing anybody's feedback on this. We could also do something Pride related at our health fair.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a queer person, I think that's cool. And the other thing is the parade is pretty late in the afternoon. Like there's stuff all day that happens on Fifth Avenue, but if we skewed a little more on the early side, potentially, it might work out.
Okay. How late in the
That's good
afternoon
to
is
know.
that, Jessica?
I think we usually start walking at like 4 or 5, like truly not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's again, folks are gathering, there's like stuff going on, but that's the thing. That's like the big moment. So
Okay.
later, yeah.
Well, corollary point, last year's health fair ran from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And this year's health fair, I thought I would support the notion of getting started a bit later, maybe like noon, and do it like noon to 4 or something, but I'm open to hearing other people's thoughts about it too. It just, you didn't seem like there were as many people at 10 in the morning ready to get out to the park as there were at like 12 noon. But, we can have those finer discussions and absolutely make it 10, 11, 12, what have you. But I think you're probably on the right track with the notion that it will not cross over anything happening before or after. Ms. Nadu, do you still have your hand up from before, or do you have something new you'd like to say? You're on mute. Okay, and you're good. Okay, awesome. Well, the
Wait, I
motion
have
is.
a question.
Mi-
Can I talk?
Of course you can talk, Latrell, go
Um,
ahead.
My question is like what Emily said. We don't want to like make anyone feel any type of way to do it on that day. So Jessica, are you sure? Because you said there's a lot of different events that's going on that day. Are you sure?
I'm not sure, and because I suppose it could change. I haven't looked at whether that's explicit for next year. Let me open this link.
But do you think it'll be okay?
As just one queer person, I think it will be okay, but I think we should.
Please speak for everyone.
Yeah, we all know each other. We actually sort of
I'm
all know
sorry,
each
I didn't mean it like that.
but I kind of think it would be nice. I think we would I do suggest making a concerted effort to highlight LGBTQ plus health opportunities.
Yeah, but here's another question, and maybe this goes to the point too, and maybe you also might, maybe you might have some particular ability to answer this question, Jessica. What are your thoughts though on like elected official availability on that day?
Oh,
Do you
that's a
think,
really
like,
good point. They usually get to the parade right before it starts. They're usually like showing up then, like not earlier in the day. So, some are, but I at least this past year, a lot of them were bopping all around and like only showed up as we started walking, which would seem fine.
Okay. All right. So the motion stands on the table for June 10th at Commodore Berry Park, and that would be the proposal for this year. And any further discussion? Then we will vote. Hearing none. I vote in favor of my own motion. Mr. Ryan, how do you vote?
You're muted.
Mr. Ryan disappeared from my window. Oh, we're
Okay.
waiting for.
I'm
go
voting
ahead.
for.
Okay, great. We've got you down. Ms. Thurston, how do you vote?
In favor.
Okay. Ms. Cumberbatch, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. McKnight, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Nadu, how do you vote?
I vote yes, but I'm also going to read Taya's comment that says this doesn't require a vote. So we could keep going, but I vote yes if we are going to keep voting.
Wonderful. Mr. Andrews, any want to weigh in on this one? All right, Mr. Andrews abstains. Cool. All right. Yeah, thanks. And I do know it doesn't require a vote, but I want to be consistent with what we did last year, and it's nice to have everybody on the same page. Cool. We'll also touch base with the Parks Committee. I'm sure that they'll be supportive of that, but we'll try to make sure that we're all supportive of it too. Cool. And I'm sure that the Friends will be delighted to hear that point as well. One thing that I want people to think about, and which we'll need to address in in planning this, and I'd be interested to hear anyone's further thoughts on this point, is having it at Commodore Barry Park is, as we know, parks have different sides. And we held our fair last year on the in the handball court / multi-purpose area, which had the dual benefit of being both close to / right across the street from the Farragut houses, and a large enough area that you could have 100 vendors in that yard. It's so large. The Friends, at least until they decided to join us last year, and they still maintain this preference this year, would prefer to hold the event over on the other side of the park, which is a few blocks away from, at least they say. I haven't done the mapping, the Ingersoll and Whitman houses, but is directly facing different brownstones. I will say that the benefit of having it on the other side, which, thank you for the map. This is so much helpful, except for the inaccurate display of public bathroom, which is not functional. So in the bottom, where we held it last year was on the I guess the top left side, Flushing and Navy. That's the area where we held it last year. Where the Friends, oh, this is even more amazing. Yeah, you can see that giant yard. Like, boy, you could fit so many vendors in that yard. Where the Friends would like to have it, and where they had originally planned to hold it last year, was over in the North Elliott / Park Avenue side, which is a little bit of a what you might say a more parky environment. There's a lot of more trees and grass and a little walkway, and it's I can say it's probably an objective statement that you're probably going to have more pedestrian traffic just passing by that area, as opposed to the yard, which is includes all those gates, and is a little less of a friendly to the eye area. But it would be interesting to hear people's thoughts about this, because there are a lot of different things to think about. Like, what do we really want? What are we trying to serve? I don't think there's a right answer necessarily. But when we do reserve the permit, we have to reserve specific areas of the park. And at a point in last year's planning, it was very much that the Friends wanted to do their thing over on their part of the park, where we wanted to do our thing on our part of the park, which was the Flushing and Navy side. So does anybody have any feelings about Flushing and Navy versus Park and Elliott? Or I don't know how if everybody's actually been to these parts of the park before, but
I have.
I do thank Taya for presenting it to us, because it gives it at least some context. So who would like to go ahead? Ms. Cumberbatch?
My only concern about that area of the park is that that's used for barbecuing, usually on the weekends, and sometimes they have like informal events on Saturday. So I've seen like different pop-up stuff where people actually bring out like full-fledged DJ equipment because they might have an event. So that might be a competing situation.
Well, I will say this: when you talk about a DJ, you have to get a sound permit from NYPD, or you should. Is at least the approach, but perhaps others don't do that.
I don't think so. I mean, during the pandemic, they had a very nice they had a gentleman that came out every Saturday and DJ'd, some good house tunes. I don't know if he had a permit, and I've seen, various people that live in the neighborhood, they may have events. And when I say DJ, I mean like big speakers and
right,
full-fledged tent and the whole 9 yards. So
Right. Yeah, that I get what you're saying. And in last year's conversations with the Parks Department, they had indicated that they were looking to crack down on this kind of experience, but I think it is nonetheless a reality that you know we have to be aware of. Of course, like anytime that we do an event like this, we will have the Parks Department supporting us. We have to get the sound permit through NYPD, so we have NYPD supporting us. But I think it's you know, you want to pick the best location. And I appreciate your sharing your experience from
and
from
I
the
think
parks.
it may have more foot traffic, because I know I use that park to cut through to go to Wegmans as other people do. I think if we did it on that side, we should make a concerted effort to speak with the folks and the Eagle buildings, because that's pretty much who uses that particular area of the park, to make sure that they're aware and we can get them to come out. And then they're also aware that we plan on doing our event that day.
Okay. Well, we are familiar with the Eagle building. We flyered that building last year, and we tried to make as much in the way of contact with them. So thank you for raising that, Ms. Cumberbatch. Does anyone else have a view on side of the park, or pro or con the one area or another? While we're waiting on that, I will just offer my own view that I feel very much about the event, that we should try to make a concerted effort to potentially co-sponsor the event with the Farragut Tenant Association and other tenant associations for the for NYCHA buildings that might potentially be in scope for attending. I think it would be helpful to give them more of a, I guess, a stake in planning the event, and it would probably boost attendance somewhat, from as they were a community that we were targeting. And yeah, and we did make outreach efforts to them last year, but I think we would hope to have more attendance, which would be great. Cool. Latrell, is there anything else you wanted to add, or do we have, we don't need to vote on anything else tonight?
Guess we just have to decide which side we want to have it on. Is it going to be the side we had it on before, or the other side that what Monique was just talking about? So I guess that's really the next decision we have, and the time period. What time are we looking to have it? The time and the location. I mean,
Right.
you know, it's the park, but we're at in the park.
Well, I will also interject that if we do have any mobile vans, it'll be a lot harder for them to, we don't know what the situation is, but it might be a little easier for them to park on the side that we used last year.
Yeah, that's a point.
I don't know if we can get permits, because we weren't expecting the mobile van because they had a cancellation, but I don't know if there's any way we can get space reserved for parking, but you know, it just so happened that there was like construction there on that side, so we were able to move the cones for them to park.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Officer Kenny, I think from the 88, I think he'll take care of that for us, because last year, didn't he give us some type of permit? He gave us something, I think, from last year.
You know, it's one of those things that I think works better in year 2 after you've already had a run through with it.
I don't think we got a permit. I think we just got lucky that there was like construction, and I moved some cones out the way and then put them back after they left.
Well, no, before the event, like in the practicality, it didn't happen that way during the event, but we were supposed to have the entire block of cars not allowed to park there during the day. It just didn't actually turn out that way. But that's what I mean. I think like in doing it a second time, we can have an even better relationship with the folks in charge of ensuring that the cars are not there, and it might be a better run through. in that regard. I'm okay if we want to do the place where we did it last year. I mean, I think it gives you an opportunity to have all of the vendors show up. You don't have that DJ challenge. Yes, you may have less foot traffic, but I think, you know, we had definitely a good amount of foot traffic at our fair last year, but perhaps we boost attendance in other ways other than just moving the fair to a different place by having a more targeted outreach to specific groups and a greater partnership with those groups, particularly as we're planning this now 6 months ahead of time, as opposed to last year where we had about 3 months or so.
Brandon, I did notice that Friends of Commodore, they seem to have a stronger preference for the other side of the park.
True.
I'm open to following their recommendation too, since they have had years of experience of doing this fair in the park. And they stated that they had great foot traffic. You know, I don't know how many people came through or how many vendors they had out there. That's something perhaps we can ask them. But
We know how many vendors that they had out there.
okay.
I think at least as their plan, they were planning to have I think somewhere between 5 to 10 vendors, and they are a smaller operation. Like they said that on the call, they're a smaller operation than what we've got. In actuality, it was probably like 2-3 vendors. And
Okay.
in addition to like the puppet show, which didn't actually happen. But Latrell, is there something you wanted to add? I
No,
didn't know if
I
that
was
was you.
gonna say that, no, that was me. They didn't have, I don't think one of their vendors or two of their vendors, they didn't show up. So.
Right. Yeah, I
And
know.
I agree with Monique when you speak about the mobile units, because the curve is better, so the trucks could be lined up on. So we get more than one truck. So if we do it on the other side, you know.
Is it impossible to park a truck on the other side, or it's just a little bit harder?
Wouldn't you make the same request to ensure that cars aren't parked?
But then it'll be more visual for people, because people come from down, oh God, I don't know what that street, they come from Fort Greene to go to the Manhattan Bridge or go to the Brooklyn Bridge. So it'll be more visible with more traffic.
The only street that would work would be Park Avenue, which is kind of busy for, but doesn't have as much, I guess, does that turn into, is it Navy or Flushing when you come down Ashland? So there's a little bit more room.
All right. I mean, I'm looking at the map here, at least the Google map, and it looks like there's a big row of parked
Yeah,
cars.
Park Avenue, I think would be good. That other street is too narrow.
Yeah, but Park Avenue is right next to it.
Park would be fine, but whatever that other street is, that's more narrow.
That's true. Although I do see that cars, at least on the Google map, including a postal vehicle, seems to feel very comfortable parking on the sidewalk. There's a ton of them that are parked over there. But it is a very narrow street. But I mean, looking at this, it does seem like this is something that at least could work for a van or a unit to pull up and use.
And it plays devil's advocate. I know for like when they do Afro Punk, there is definitely vehicles on that street, usually parked on the sidewalk, but.
Okay. All right. Cool. Mr. Ryan, what was the bathroom that you found closer to this other side of the park, or was it farther away?
I walked directly across the field, and it
Oh,
was really,
the football field?
yeah, I walked directly across,
Okay,
and
to Park
and
Avenue?
to your right.
Oh, okay. Okay,
And there was a lot of, it could have been, there was seating, a lot of families. I think it was near the children's park as well, where I found the restroom. That's all I remember.
okay. All right. Let's see.
Do we have to make a decision tonight about the location, or can at least we have a date to move forward?
Well, I don't think we have to make a firm decision necessarily, but it is good to know what everybody's thoughts are. Is there anybody who strongly opposes doing it in one place or another?
No, I would, in favor of, Nicole's recommendation that we touch base with, Friends of Commodore Barry Park, since they accommodated us, last year, to see what their, wishes for this year.
Okay, well, we definitely know what their wish is for this year. They would like us to do this on the Park Avenue and North Elliott side of the park.
But if I don't remember me saying this, I highly recommend that we allow them to use their own tables next year.
Right.
So we have more tables.
I support you in that. I think that's fair. But we'll definitely talk more about tables and stuff in the upcoming in the lead up to the event, because that's going to be it's something that you don't need to do 6 months ahead of time, at least, although some amount ahead of time. I don't want to make this discussion last too long tonight. So what I will say is, at this point, we're not 100% decided about whether we're going to do it at the old place location last year or the new location this year. We'll talk to Barbara and the Parks Committee. We'll talk with the board office. We'll touch base again with the friends, and in the course of this, perhaps we'll move to the new location. I do see that as a possible location, the North Elliott and Parkside, but perhaps we don't do that. Could I ask also, just like, who on the committee really wants to, if we did go the route of having a subcommittee of the board, who would want to participate and really engage in the planning this year? You don't need to let me know now, but if you're interested, then we'll definitely put you down and include you in this, and you can always reach out afterwards as we're putting something together.
Okay, fair.
And I got you, Miss McKnight. I'm happy to have you involved again, and
I want to be involved.
that is not a surprise, Latrell. I've got you.
It's Emily. I'd love to be involved since I'll be here. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I look forward to working with you, Emily. Cool. And anybody else, if you want to be involved, just let me know, and we'll be grateful for your participation.
Participate.
Thank you, Monique. It is great to have you back involved in this. All right. Let's move along in tonight's agenda. We have reached the point for community forum. We're grateful to have at least one member of the community here. And to the members of the community. You don't have to raise an item here if you don't want to, but if there's something you want to say and you want to make your voice heard to the health committee here about your experiences or anything that you want to bring to our attention, we'll be more than grateful to give you 2 minutes to do so. So does anyone from the public want to speak in in community forum? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting in record time. Everybody wants to stay? Oh,
Oh.
Ms. Anadu, okay.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting. Let's get out while we're ahead. It's been great.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second, Mr.
Second.
Ryan. All right. Does anybody disapprove or abstain? We're all in favor of adjourning. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out and happy holidays. I'll see you in the
Thank
new,
you
the
as
new
well.
year.
Happy
Good night.
holiday, happy new
And
year.
have a good trip.
Bye, everyone.